This example, we're going to be showing you how you can use strict, and on purpose we're not going to be declaring the variables properly, or we're not going to be using the let, const, or var in order to declare the variables. And we're going to notice that when we've got the use strict, when the use strict is being applied, we see that we get a reference error. If we comment out the use strict, then the code will run even though that we haven't properly declared the variables. And that's what we're going to be covering in this example. This lesson we're going to be applying use strict, and it's a way to enforce modern JavaScript syntax and catch errors early. So we've got our HTML file created here, linked to a file called app1.js. So that's going to be where our JavaScript is going to go. The browser is opened on the right-hand side to the HTML page, and the developer tools console is in the bottom right-hand side. So let's get ahead and open up the JavaScript file. And what we're going to do is we're going to set a value of x. So set the value of x to be 10. Now normally we know that we need to use one of the declarers in order to declare the variables, so either using let or const. And because this variable is not being declared, let's go ahead and we're going to make a console log, and we'll see what error that we throw within the console when we run the code. So saving the code, we see we get an output of 10. So typically we would expect that this is improperly written and we should see an error within the JavaScript, but because we're not within strict mode, JavaScript is able to adapt and apply the code to it, and they're able to understand what the code is. So use strict is a directive in JavaScript that enables a strict mode, and in order to apply it, what we do is we specify in the quotes use strict at the top of the JavaScript file. So saving that, we see that now we're throwing an error within the JavaScript, and this is a way that we can catch errors within the syntax, even though that we might not see them being thrown within the console. When we use strict, we do see it being thrown in the console. So now we get an uncaught reference error, x is not defined. So let's comment out the use strict, and then once again we're able to work and it's able to run. So let's try another example where we're also going to be applying and running some JavaScript code that will run and work. So if we have an anonymous function that we're going to be invoking, and within this function, here we're going to be specifying the value of y equals 20. And once again, y is not going to be defined where we're not using one of the variables in order to define it. And so in order to invoke the function so that the function runs on its own. And let's also log out the value of y. So we should see the value of y being logged out, which is also 20. And strict mode is a way to opt to a secure version of JavaScript. When strict mode is enabled, it will validate your JavaScript code more strictly and throw errors where it encounters unsafe. So once again, we're going to enable the use strict, but this time we're going to take the use strict and we're going to keep it within the function that it's running. So we're only going to throw the error on y because within the scope of this function, this is where we're applying the strict mode. So you can also apply the strict to the entire global object, which we were doing earlier, where all of the code within the entire JavaScript file is going to be checked and throw errors. And in this case, we're also able to apply it within the function scope. So in both of these examples, x and y are not declared using var, let, or const, and therefore they're considered global variables. And if we apply the use strict globally, and we can comment this use strict out, we're going to see that it's going to stop at the first error that it throws. So it runs into x, and the reference for x is not defined. Let's add in the let, and then we'll see if it catches the y. And use strict, once again, is being applied globally to all of the variables within the function, and if they're not being declared, then it's going to throw an error. So that's how you can apply and use strict within your JavaScript code.